the law of repetition, like if you want to develop skills or master anything, really you do need repetition, and that is the nature of the mind. And once you do have enough repetition, the mind will itself will start producing the repetition. Like think about driving, right? So when you first started driving, you have to be very conscious or use the conscious mind a lot, right? But when you started to when like learn, especially when you learn about the mind, you will see that, especially the law of repetition, you can use the law of repetition to particularly to implement driving, and then it becomes more natural. So if you've been practicing driving like maybe 10, 15 times, and you're taking the same road, you're not really paying attention to the road anymore. That's simply because the subconscious mind has taken over, and the law of repetition now is working behalf of you. Even same thing when you're brushing your teeth, or even when you're doing certain work. So you will see that specifically the mind works on a repetition. So if you have even ruminating thoughts, right, certain thoughts that keep coming to your mind, right, and you cannot really stop it, that's because the law of repetition working at play. So that's one of the main things that you will see, is that once something becomes so practiced or something that is embedded to you, it will start producing it automatically.
Yeah, Dulek?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, what is the difference between meditation and mindfulness?
Yeah. So one of the main things that I see as the difference between meditation is a meditation is like an actual active process, right? I mean, yeah, both of them are active processes, but meditation is something you actually schedule time to do, and that you do, right? So, like sitting in peace and calm, or observing your thoughts while you're sitting, or you're practicing certain affirmations or mantras, right? So, meditation is actual process that you set out maybe 15 minutes, 10 minutes, or 30 minutes, however you long, you sit down and you do a specific thing. Mindfulness, for me, what I found out is the studying about the mind itself, because you're becoming mindful, or you're recognizing how the mind works. You're starting to pay attention to the mind. So paying attention to the mind is the first level, but studying the mind more and more, deeper components of it, deeper aspects of it, right? You can do that even when you're not really sitting down and meditating. You can, even when we are talking about mind, we are doing mindfulness, because we're learning about the mind. When you're learning about the mind, when you're paying attention to the mind, especially these aspects, right? Okay, we'll take a look at these three levels. So one of the main reasons I know um, this aspect, I think better representation of the mind is this circle ones, because I see subconscious is not something that is actually below. It's still actually, in order to access that, you have to actually increase your vibration or increase yourself, right? That means going higher. So even though I've put it in a way that it seems like it's below you, it is not. It's very powerful. So we'll talk about why is it powerful, and it's more closer to the superconscious mind. Again, we'll talk about what the superconscious mind and everything. It is more close to that. So don't think that when you're meditating or you're going below, you're actually going higher. So when you go higher, because many people think when I need to go look into what's in my subconscious mind below. It doesn't really work that it's something that is, think of it as something that you need to go higher to when you do meditation and things like that, or mindfulness, you're actually going more higher. So these are some of the properties I actually found within the architecture or the levels of the mind. So the subconscious mind is what's responsible for our memories and emotions and habits. So yeah, like we talked about before, like driving, even emotions like happiness, joy, even anxiety or depression and sadness is really comes from the subconscious mind. That's why we don't even know why we are unhappy sometimes, right? Why we are like fearful of sometimes, because we don't understand, because it's at the subconscious level that these things are generated from. And that's also where your like long-term memories, so things that happened to you in your past, when you're a child, when you're going through different experiences, there's a lot of data there that is still embedded. So you're not consciously thinking about them, but it is there for you if you decided to access and think about certain things. So all these things are essentially recorded in your subconscious mind, and you will see that it is also responsible for your automatic thinking and your a lot of the emotional reactions you have. So I remember one of the main issues that I had before in my life is that I used to get angry really fast, right? Especially one of the main reasons, when I used to play sports, it was, to be aggressive was very useful. I didn't know being aggressive can cause me high blood pressure, cause me anxiety, and then anxiety can lead to other issues. So I didn't really know that. I thought it was, it's okay to feel that way. What's wrong? It has been so helpful for me before. What's wrong with being angry and having that emotional reactions? So I didn't really check that. So I didn't wasn't really mindful about that. So when I now look into it, I realize it's again caused a lot of things, and it's actually coming from the subconscious mind or aspect of the mind that I wasn't really aware about. So that was a major thing that kind of led me to letting go of certain emotions or even reactions that I had had in the past and try to change them. And I'll tell you, there are processes on how to change it. Basically, the law of substitution, right? Thoughts can be replaced and reframed consciously. So if you started to decide, like, what, I don't want to be angry anymore, I don't want to have that negative reaction towards that, your subconscious will start honoring that. But the conscious mind to need to decide that. So that's one of the main things I found. If you do decide that you do want to stop a behavior, and if you do it enough times, you repeat yourself enough time, this combination of things can bring you the change that you're looking for. It just, again, it's not something I knew that you can change thoughts like that. But I realized, again, why do people go to school? Why do people go to church or temple? They are looking to actively learn and change themselves. So it's because of this law of substitution that is within the mind that allows you to do that, right? And if you apply with, like I said, law of repetition, then you can reinforce the new idea that you're putting in. So that's one of the major ones. And even things like addiction patterns, and what I recognize is actually coming from that. Again, addictions are basically, many people have a negative attitude towards about addiction, but what it is just coping mechanism, right? Sometimes you don't have a better way to deal with a situation or challenge or stressful situation. Sometimes we look for something that suits us. Like some people take alcohol, some people take drugs, right? And so these addictions, don't have to look at them at that's the negative way. In fact, if you start to look at them in a negative way, it becomes more stronger, right? So many people have a lot of different addictions coming from as a way to cope with their challenges and behavior. So what I say to now people, don't be so hard on yourself. If you have addictions, learn there's a way to change that, move away from that, and there's a way to actually stop it, right? And I've experimented with that as well, and I found ways to actually how to stop certain things that I was even doing using this system, right? So that's very key component to know, because I see a lot of people when they have something that they don't want to do, they're really hard on themselves. That actually causes you to diminish your own self-esteem, which causes a whole bunch of other problems we'll talk about. But it causes the addiction symptom or addiction itself to get stronger, right? So we'll talk more about that. And even aspects like negative self-talk, negative talk about other people coming naturally from that. Like I said, like I see a lot of people complaining about other people, Trudeau or somebody, right? I was like, do you know what is it doing it to you? And many people don't know, complaining about themselves or some other group or about even themselves, not really have a positive effect on the long run. Again, I did these things too without knowing the effects of it, but now I know the effects of it. I obviously don't do it as much, but it does. It is there. It is sometimes comes through the subconscious mind when I get stressed out, or it just what I call it just pops out of my mouth or pops out into my consciousness, and you can't really stop, especially during stressful times. So that's one of the things you will see when you become more mindful. You can start to see that, and you can start to control and change that. Okay, so that's a key one as well. Again, any questions so far about what we talk about? Okay, great. So yeah, so rumination, like we talked about before, certain repeated cycles of thinking. right? That, again, I struggled with it for a while, and especially when I was going through a challenging time, like, why am I keep thinking that? Like, especially my father passed away. I was keep thinking, oh, what's going to happen to, after I die? What's going to be? Am I like, do I know, like, we also have the Buddhist culture then talking about karma. And when things were going not my way, I was like, is it because of karma? Right? What do I do now? Right? Like, continually this rumination of like fear was running in my head. And I realize now it's coming from the subconscious mind, because I agreed upon to think that way. Right? So that was one of the main ones that I started to notice. And another thing about the subconscious mind that you will notice is that it doesn't really argue with you. It doesn't judge what you say. It just simply just takes it and goes with it, and just goes with it. It doesn't really tell you, don't think that way, don't think the other way, think this way. It doesn't really say any of that. It doesn't have no filtering mechanism. So it just, whatever you code in, whatever you think or whatever you believe, it will say, sure, I will act upon it. Right? So that's something that you will see about the subconscious mind. It doesn't come and argue with you. That's something I wonder. It's like, is there anything that's who can tell me what I'm doing right and wrong? And I was like, I really couldn't even that's one of the things I struggled in my early in my career. It just, I was looking for like a coach or counselor or something who can tell me, like, am I doing the right stuff? And, or am I doing the wrong stuff? Am I going to get into trouble for thinking that way or doing things that way? So that's one of the ones that I was missing, and that's again why what I'm doing now and coaching and training is kind of giving that extra perspective for people. And certain things that you're thinking and doing might not be helpful, right? So you might want to take a look at that. Okay, not yet, maybe. So ask away if you do.
I think Sajjan's on mute.
Yeah, Sachin,
Yeah, I think he's on mute.
Oh, you
there
see.
you go. Perfect. Go
Sorry
ahead.
about that. Yeah.
No, no
Yeah,
worries.
I think the topic of the mind is very, it's a deep topic.
It is.
There's a lot to cover in
It
it.
is. There's a lot to
And
cover. There's a 6 years worth of stuff on it
and that
that
will
I
not be
need to
enough.
start
Like,
covering
I think
slowly.
there's still a lot of research,
Yeah, you'll see.
going
It's
on
like,
with this.
because
Yeah.
I mean, you will see, like, even in our conversation, these concepts, these are like foundational ones. You will see, like, once we cover, we'll go back to that thing, right? We're talking about this level right now only, right? And then, again, we'll talk about conscious mind, all these things. So different laws we will talk about more and more deeper. But that's why I really want anyone, if anyone has any questions about it, ask me right away. Like, how does this work? Because I feel like the most effective ways is to question, but I do kind of have to share with you what I found about the foundation of the mind. There's, again, not a lot of things you need to know. There are certain things I found, if you were to know them, it will be really useful to alleviate some of the problems people have. So I'm not even talking about everything I learned. That would be just way too much. So I'm just kind of bringing in now what are the most effective things if you were to learn that will help you. Do you know what I mean, Sajin?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it is.
Yeah. I had a question. I
Yeah,
had a
yeah, please go
question,
ahead.
guys.
My bad. Yeah.
So how's that? Like, do we like? Is it like we have a culture that usually tells us, okay, you need to keep pushing yourself to do
Right,
things and all that.
right.
So, is our minds like really designed to take in all the stress and everything, or should we take some time, just rest and then continue?
Yeah, that's a
So,
great question.
yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, one of the things again, one of the laws we'll talk about is called the law of relaxation. What I found about the mind is actually works better when in a relaxed state, right? Especially, it's okay to go through certain time, like a time where you go really hard, you push it. But it's what I see, why the culture or our society is so gung-ho about like success or achievement and competition. It is in error. And that's why we have sometimes challenges in our lives, right? So mixing up with your life with activity and relaxation is the ideal way to go, right? Not just, hardcore all the time. It's, again, I did that as well. Hence for my blood pressure, hence for my anxiety, hence burnout. Because I was like, oh, that's the way to do it. Everybody else is doing. What's wrong? I was doing even
yeah,
fast. I was doing like 200, like 2 times the speed, right? That's what I felt. So
okay,
what I see is that introducing both rest and activity, right? One now, like, I know not this is not practical for everybody, but what I found the best ratio to work to rest is 1 to 1. So 1 hour of work, 1 hour of rest, right? So it's important. That's what the ratio I found is the most ideal for people. But again, not everybody can apply right that, but having the mix of things is the right way, not just going hardcore all the time. Does that answer
Okay.
your question?
Yeah, it does. It is. Thank you. Thank you, Zilli.
Perfect. So yeah, so that's one of the things that we see, right? And another thing about the subconscious mind, you will realize that it's infinitely creative. So your creative ability, your ability to do things, accomplish things, actually comes from that. Like, but problem is, like we talk about, it doesn't have a necessarily the decision making ability or the logic to figure out what to be creative on. If you tell it to be go create a nuclear weapon, it will do that, and it will bring information from all over the universe. It can access that, right? It can access the superconscious mind to get this information. It will start actually, if it started to say that, oh, you want to write a book on God, it will start doing that. So it doesn't really make the decision for you. It will just say, yeah, we have infinite capability. We'll just bring it for you if you believe that it is possible for you to do it. So belief is a big controlling factor for how to control your subconscious mind. So that's why when you go through schooling or go through different practices, if you can believe the right beliefs or have faith in certain beliefs, right, you can have different results. So that's one of the main things that I realized. And another easy way to really understand the subconscious mind is recognize that it works like a fertile soil or like a garden, right? Depending on the thoughts and beliefs that you entertain, right, or you learn about, you're essentially starting to seed or plant these ideas. Even these conversation here, you're starting to seed or plant certain ideas of understanding the mind, right? So we will talk about it, like there are certain things that happens when you started to learn about the mind. It started to sometimes be distracted or feel sleepy. It's normal, because it's something sometimes very new for people, right? So if you don't have the right soil or right pathways, it might feel that way in the beginning, and it's okay. It's anticipate, and then once you learn more about the mind, it becomes more easier to understand and learn about the mind. Okay. So
Hey,
yeah, go ahead, Derek.
sorry, I got a question.
Sure.
Is the subconscious mind, is it like big, like a Costco warehouse, or is it like a little bedroom of like memories and photos? And the reason why I'm saying that is because I feel like I noticed, like, you remember you used to play sports with me all the time,
Yeah.
and the way that I play sports and stuff like that. I feel like ever since I was younger and just kind of my teenage years, and my parents kind of had a little bit of a rough time and stuff like that, I felt like that was kind of like an anger outlet at times.
Right.
And as I've grown older now, like, I'm pretty happy with my life. I've got a family, I got kids, I got a good job, I have my friends, my sports still. But I always get to a point sometimes when I'm playing sports, even now, that if
Mm.
like it's almost like if something happens and it makes me feel like really disrespected,
Right.
almost turn on like an autopilot where I'm
Yes.
like my 15-year-old self playing rugby again or hockey again. And I'm like, man, like, who cares? Like, my logic in my brain is saying, like, dude, who gives a crap? Like,
Right.
I have to work tomorrow, who cares? But there's something that like turns on and takes control, and it's just like I feel like I don't even know.
Yeah.
It just feels like, yeah, I'm on autopilot. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah. That's a great. So one of the things that mind does, Derek, is that depending on the situation, it started to create different identities using the subconscious mind. So to answer your early question, is it what I see is like it's like its capabilities are huge. Like can't even put it on like a heavy. It's big because it's tapping into because we will get into more. There's no limit to its ability to do things, right? So based on the situations when you were younger, and if you responded to situations in a specific way, that identity, that how you respond, get retained, because one of the main things is that mind can create multiple identities for you. Yeah, so that's one of the things. So you might still have that 15-year-old aspects still that kicks in during certain times when things are not going your way. But because you're bringing back to your conscious mind and saying like, look, why? Who cares, right? You're reducing that effect that you have on you. But when you become objective and not judging that aspect, it will start to dissolve from you, and you can still be logical about it. But again, it's up to you to decide, is that the way I really want to respond to that situation? And that determines or activates that identity. Right? Does that make sense?
I think so. But I think to me, like, who's in charge of writing my subconscious, deleting my subconscious, updating my subconscious? I haven't had, I'm 35 now, probably in the last, I don't know, at least 10, maybe a little bit longer years.
Yeah.
I haven't had any of the stuff that I felt like I had when I was a little bit younger.
Right.
They've been really good. So it's like, what is it going to take for me to lose that part of my subconscious? And why is it still there? That's why I asked, like, is it this house where this random 15-year-old is chilling in the corner so far away that like maybe everything else is kind of updated with me in my life, but that
Right.
one thing still makes an appearance like once in a while?
Right. Right. Yeah, it's one of the things. Yeah, it's one of the things that you'll see, that aspect of like personality needs to be integrated. Is like, you know what, you acted that way probably because of you had a need. That's one of the things I see, is that, when we have that personality coming in, the way I tell people how to integrate that is like, there's a very likely there that it was a very useful way to respond at that time using that way. So it's sometimes like, oh, what about me? Right? Am I still needed? Am I need to be? So it probably come to you or to your conscious, but again, it is something that that needs to be identified. Like, you know what, like, it's almost, you need to like having your like a younger brother, right? Except having him outside of yourself, he's still inside of you. Right? So younger brother is still 15 and reacting. So how do you respond to that, a younger brother who is still having issues with things? Do you
Okay.
react to
That's really
to
interesting.
yeah, you're reacting to it like anger and disappointment and why you still here? Or it's like, okay, I get you, why you had to do what you had to do at that time. That makes sense. Some of the one aspect is probably one of the things that's the same younger brother that helps you feel younger and helps you play sports.
Hmm.
Right? So it's where you that's what I saw. It's like, I used to like criticize myself for the way being a certain way, like you, same issue. Me going, coming from an immigrant family, I was like, man, I need to really worry about money, I need to do this way, right? But when I have similar issues, like it kicks up again. I was like, why are you here? Why are you like thinking about that way anymore? And I can't tell the difference sometimes. Like, is this me, or is this me in the past? Then I realized, no, I reacted that way before because that was the right way to react, and I never said, "Is like, is it good to react to that way anymore? It might not be useful anymore." So just having a conversation with myself was the first step, and then if you start to have enough conversation because of law of repetition, right? It will start to integrate the good aspects of that identity back to you, like your joyful self, or that playful side, even coming from that 15-year-old. So if you start to kill that, your joyful side might even go with it, right? That's why I see in a lot of people, when they become adults, they become too much adults, right? But the younger versions of them still like, where am I? I'm still here, right? During stressful times or something, it comes up, it makes you feel like you're really young or immature, but it's not really about that. It's just what I see is like, it's okay. It's how I used to act, or how you used to act, and that got turned into a specific personality that you don't know, recognize, right? So there's a lot of conversation about that. We can talk more, but that's at least kind of what we can focus on right now. There. What do you think? Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, it's very interesting, like I said, because it happens, and I'm like, that's not me anymore. Like but yeah, I guess maybe back in the day, that was the way that I dealt with stuff, and it like served me properly because
yes,
it made me better at sports, or it made me like, really try hard in sports, and that was like rewarding to my brain, right? To be like, oh man, these people actually, I'm part of a team, and they think I'm good at what I do.
hmm
But yeah, like that behavior itself comes out, and I'm like, man, I'm not really like this, man. I'm a dad, man. I got 2 kids. Like, I don't care
Right.
stuff. There's more important stuff to worry about, right?
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
then to the point of like being youthful as well. Like, I am a dad, but I don't see myself as a dad. And sometimes I just feel like the older brother messing around with my kids. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
total goofball, super silly with them, playing with them all the time. So it's like that I don't want to lose. I don't want to be your typical dad that, like, just commands respects and walks away too. So it's interesting that maybe it's something I can't necessarily cut out completely, because it's also fueling the way that I am
Yeah.
playful with my kids, I guess. So
Exactly. It's like having like a teenager that you don't want to you don't want to deal with anymore.
yeah.
Right. So how do you deal with teenager? Well, it's a little bit of a game, right? A bit of a process. So, but usually what I found is loving that teenager from the place you are right now is the best way still.
Interesting.
Love. We'll talk about that more. So,
Cool.
so that's a great example and perspective, by the way. So that's I have the similar type of trouble with said. I mean, I have like it seems like I have multiple personalities I got to work through, right? So, right, different
I hear
personality.
you on that one.
Sorry.
I said, yeah, I hear you on that one for sure.
Yeah. So so that's a different person. Honestly, that's one of the things. There's literally a modality in psychotherapy called internal family systems. It's actually less to do with family and having multiple personalities inside of you and how those things got created. And what happens is why when people have like bipolar or multiple personalities, because there is a disconnection between all of them, right? So then different scenarios and situations, different personalities kick in, right? So that's really what I believe is happening. And again, there's a check it out on ChatGTP or anything like that, as we're talking. So it's something called internal family systems, that your mind or the subconscious mind naturally starts creating personalities in order to deal with situations better. It's the same thing with the personality we have at work is different from the personality we have with our friends or with our parents, or so it's a different one. So usually what people get anxieties about is when they have to integrate all of them at once. Like if you have like a public speaking session, you need to have one personality that matches to everybody. So that's usually where the anxiety is coming from for a lot of people, because of that integration issue. But if you know about these things, you're like, it's okay, I can let my personalities be, I'm just going to be myself, right? So again, like there's a lot of implications you will see to understanding understanding the mind and what it does in order to deal with situations. So we'll talk more about that. And we talk about reprogramming through repetition and conscious learning, right? So again, it's a major function of how the mind works is through repetition. So if you want to learn skills, and even if you want to drop certain things, right, repetition is needed. Some people think, if I just do it once, it's be good, I will be good to go. It doesn't really work that way for the mind, subconscious mind. We need to show it multiple times in order to go, and you have to implement it. You have to be conscious about it, especially in the early stages, right? So if you're, I don't know, I know many of you also having, working on your careers and developing different skills. So don't be so hard on yourself if you're not picking things up right away. It's only natural, right? So things usually when you're picking up skills, like even me speaking, doing public speaking or writing or even coaching, it was not so natural. So I consciously have to get myself to do the right stuff in the beginning. And now it's becoming more and more natural, but that's how the way it kind of functions, right? So for skills, it's a very important thing how this law of repetition works. And also you'll see the mind also, especially the subconscious mind also responsible. Again, this both subconscious and the superconscious mind. Will get into what are the differentiations between that, but you'll see at the end of the day, there's only really one mind when you understand things completely. There's really one mind with a capital M. But because we don't understand everything about our universe and ourselves properly, this level of categorization is necessary for us to kind of comprehend things. So for example, right now, who's like beating your heart right now, right? Who's causing you to breathe? who's flowing the blood in your body. Do like, I really don't know how any of those things are working, but they're working, right? So this is a certain aspect of the mind is highly intelligent, that is doing things behalf of you, right? Your like heart rate, breathing, healing, digestion, all these things. So when you started to understand these things and how they work, you're becoming more conscious or super conscious, right? So that's one of the main things that you will see is that when you do learn about the mind, these things started to also start regulating better as well. Especially your health and things like that. And we'll talk about why that's the case and so forth. And like we talked about before, it follows laws, right? Like cause and effect, we'll talk about more and more. But cause and effect is primarily this aspect we were talking about, where your thoughts have the ability to cause emotions, and the emotions have the ability to cause certain behaviors. And as another thing that needs to come out is that it also has the ability to cause your reality. Again, I'm experimenting with that aspects of things, but in traditionally that is known as metaphysics, right? So we'll talk more about that in our sessions. So any question? I know we'll talk more about the subconscious mind and everything, but these are essentially the foundation that I usually help people understand. I mean, we will talk more definitely about the laws more, but these are the foundations. So any questions about the subconscious mind? I will tell you this: not knowing how the subconscious mind was a major challenge for me. Once I really understood there's something called the subconscious mind, and it works in specific laws and certain mechanism without my control, right? That really helped me wrap my mind about the mind, right? So that's one of the main things that I feel like was a huge piece that was missing in my early stage of understanding, is a lot of these emotions and like behaviors, even personalities, that is coming from the subconscious mind. I didn't know there was even such thing called subconscious mind. So that was a major change that was valuable for me. Okay, so something for you to remember. So I'm gonna take a quick break. I need to plug uh my laptop to my power source. So give me a quick second, okay?
Hey Derek, hey Sylvan. It's been a while.
Hey, buddy. How's it
How
going?
are you? Good,
Hey
man.
man, how's it going?
Good.
Hey,
So wait, what's on
Hi.
your on the blackboard behind you? I mean, the whiteboard behind you.
Scribbling.
What is it
I mean,
about?
I'm in, I'm in one of my friends' offices.
Oh,
So they have like a whiteboard here. It's just, I have no idea
I've
what
ever since you came on, I was like, what's going on at the in the back?
on the background, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's working hard, bro. He's an engineer, bro. Stop messing around. He's engineering, as we.
It's all the engineering behind.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like I said, like understanding, man. I'm telling you, understanding the subconscious mind. I mean, it was one of the major discover. I mean, not for major discovery for the world, but major discoveries for me to see where my challenges and all this is coming from. So, any questions?
I had a question for you.
Yeah.
When we talk about taking action,
Yeah.
right? Would that should be that is that part of our conscious mind, or is that part of our subconscious mind? Even though I know, the like you mentioned there, the subconscious mind is a collection of our memories, emotions, and habits.
Yeah.
Does that include taking action based on, because obviously we take action based on a certain thought first, then
Yeah.
a certain emotion kicks in, and from there we take a certain action towards that, right?
Yes. Yeah. Is that the question, so?
Yeah. So is action, when we talk about taking action, is that part of our, or even the law of action there, is that part of our subconscious mind, or is that a part of our conscious mind?
Right. So that's a good question. So what I found was, certain actions that is easy for you to take, right? Right. Certain actions that are, say, playing sports. If you like sports, if you have certain actions that you already have, It is actually easiness of it, or naturality of it is constructed by the subconscious mind, right? Certain actions are not usually, even the right actions, like for example, writing like book or something, that's not really, even though you want to, right? It might not be embedded into the subconscious mind yet,
Hmm.
that pathway. But if you actually take action consciously, then it becomes part of the subconscious mind's patterning. So just because you want to take an action, it will make it easier for you, but it will not naturalize it, or it will not make it automatic.
So it has, if it has to be automatic, it has, you have to go through the basically the law of repetition, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Consciousness, conscious application, and repetition.
And so when we do that, you're saying that would go back down to our part of the subconscious mind. It molds into part of the subconscious mind. Am I correct?
Yes, exactly. It's just become part of the subconscious mind that, if you've done it enough repetition, you don't even need to consciously think about it.
I see. Okay, got it.
Right? You will just automatically start implementing it.
You just do it, yeah.
Yeah, just do it. And it's like, oh, I'm like, it's second nature. That's where it's coming from. Second nature is a second part of the mind, subconscious. Right? So, so that's the application. So initially, yeah, there is it can take care of actions for you, but you need to consciously implement for several repetitions. Especially the more complex the steps are, the more repetition needed. Hence
Got it.
experience. Right?
Yeah. That develops the experience, right?
Exactly. That's what people call experience, that level of understanding and the repetitions that are coming out of your system.
Okay.
All right. So I know we also covered a decent amount. I know we covered this stuff last week as well, but one of the main things also, your biggest decision making tool at the end of the day is your conscious mind, right? So where do you control your subconscious mind with? So this is the mechanism, this is the interface, right? So think of your conscious mind is like the UI of a computer, where it has all the buttons, all the icons, right? This is where you make the decisions from. Based on what you press, it will start activating certain things. So you can consciously think certain thoughts or believe certain things, and then it will start activating certain things, aspect of your rest of your mind. So what I found, the main thing is that the things that even come to your conscious mind, you might not be aware if you have not been used to seeing these things come into your mind. So naturally, your mind, or the conscious mind, go through about 8 to 17,000 thought patterns per day. So what that means is like, if you think like, oh, I'm doing well, or I'm getting sad, that's those are two thought systems. So thought patterns. So you go through about 8 to 17,000 a day on average, and 95% we are not aware of them. It just kind of goes through. That's why when you become more aware and more mindful, you started to become more aware of these thought patterns that are running in your conscious mind, and more, and you can start to get control it. You can start to substitute it. But that's kind of the idea, is understanding that there's this certain amount of thoughts that runs throughout the day, and then usually a thought lasts for about 5 to 10 seconds, even shorter sometimes, depending on how rapid your thinking is. So a person who's working, thinking, they might have really fast thinking, but that fast thinking comes with a specific nature, like type A personality, or like that's what happened to me, right? Like I would do things really fast, right? Not slow down. So that made my mind run at a very fast speed, causing anxiety, causing other things, right? So that was one of the things. So when I started to slow down through meditation and mindfulness, you can literally say like, no, calm down, right? Some people get pissed off just hearing that. That means they're going way too fast, right? So one of the things you will see that aspect about the mind is that you can start it to calm it, relax it consciously by talking to yourself. Calm down. It's okay. Not bad. It's okay. It's going well. Then it will naturally start calming the speed of your thoughts, so you can actually see what's going on. So usually you'll see that in early meditations, what I usually do with people is that, starting to go more relaxed, started to calm down their thinking, right? And that's usually the beginning, because if you cannot even pay attention to all the thoughts that's going on, it's hard for people to sit down and meditate. So that's why we talk about this stuff before, so then when you do go to meditate, you know exactly what you're doing, right? And exactly what's happening. So when during more and more deeper meditation sessions, you will see that, especially experts, they have literally minimal thought happening. Like within a minute, they might not even have a thought. They might have one or two thoughts in the whole minute. So being able to empty the mind and the speeds of thinking you become able to handle your mind like a software a lot better. Does that make sense? Good. Yeah, and then the next aspect of it is that it acts like a bridge, right? It's integrates, information between both the subconscious mind and the superconscious mind, right? So it can access both, but there is one way to, again, once you keep digging into the subconscious mind, you will start accessing the superconscious mind. But we'll talk about what the superconscious mind is. I think for me, it's a very interesting subject to talk about the superconscious mind. But what I see is that we need to understand really what's the behavior of the conscious mind and the subconscious mind first. Before we can get to that level, right? So the more you become aware, the more you come to these sessions, the more you start paying attention to your thoughts, your behaviors, your emotions, even the loss, right? You are naturally becoming more aware and more conscious, right? So we saw here, right? So when you're becoming more conscious, you will start expanding into your understanding your subconscious, right? Again, we have to still understand the consciousness work, but then when you kind of master that and how to make good decisions, you can start looking into your subconscious more, right? And start changing your thoughts and things like that more. Then once you started to get more and more deeper understanding of that, you will start be able to tap into what is going on the superconscious as well. Again, don't think subconscious mind is below you. It is not. It is definitely very powerful, more powerful than the conscious mind, right? So, I mean, again, it's hard to really compare between powerful and power not, but don't think it is something that you need to go down. You need to still meditate and then go upwards. Then you started to see that. Okay, so that's a very important aspect. Again, like I said, having more busier mind, right? Having a lot of thoughts, high volume of thoughts, you have a busy mind. But your job is to kind of keep it relaxed so you can process things better, right? So that's usually why when you go to either counseling or coaching, whatever it may be, one of the main things we do is that we started to look at what are the thoughts that you're working with here. Is these thoughts even helping you? So starting to calm it down and processing these thoughts becomes usually like a critical piece of our coaching or counseling, whatever it may be. Okay, so that understanding is key. Higher, like, as your high, awareness increases, you will become more capable. You will start to develop more skills. You'll be able to do more things. You understand more people better. You just know, you will feel like you will just understand and you can do things a lot more easily. So you will see that pattern as well as you're doing it. Okay. And then we'll talk about, setting goals and, source of your willpower and all these things. These things will come in more and more, but you will see that if you want to kind of take this on your own to develop your conscious mind, so you start exploring it more, start, journaling more, right? I think, writing down your thoughts, keep a journal. That's one of the main practices that I do with my clients, is that first things I tell them, keep a journal, right? See what you're thinking about. See how you're thinking, right? So write down your challenges, write down your thoughts, write down your goals, what do you want to do, right? Start writing them down. Just easier to visualize and see it, right? Instead of you keeping these things in your mind. And, learning is another aspect of changing the conscious mind, the subconscious mind. Read more books, start with what you love, right? Always go with the joy. The joy is a major one of the GPS systems that is inbuilt to tell you what to do. It's again something I didn't really listen. I know Derek is something who actually practiced this a lot, letting joy guide their life, right? So one of the things that I can tell you, um, allowing joy and creativity and love to guide your life is a major find that have helped me, going in this journey right now. I didn't always do that, and that's hence I felt misaligned, right? Having issues. So joy is a major factor, like a major GPS that is inbuilt to your system that tells you maybe that's what you should do, right? So start when you're learning, start with what you do enjoy learning. Even same with meditation. That's why I'm not really a proponent of telling people what to do with meditation, because there's a lot of videos on how to meditate online. What I rather you do is like go to the one that is you're most attracted to and see how you feel about that. Okay, so that's one of the major recommendations that I can give you. Okay, so that's essentially what I wanted to. We're going to be covering more and more, right? We do have a lot of other things to talk about and discover, but I think that's those are the main two I want to see. I think we're also coming to time, so I'm going to open up for just having a little bit of a discussion and hanging around and asking questions about this or whatever may be. So, what do you guys think? What is your thoughts? What is your feelings? Is it make sense, or is it need more examples, or what is share your thoughts, questions.
I think it makes sense. Totally getting it. And I think the discussion helps when there's actual real life examples that were shared.
Right.
And really appreciate you going through and answering those questions. Because as a listener as well, I can kind of jump on those examples that other people are sharing and understand from their different perspectives.
Yeah,
So it's been really helpful.
good, Isra. Thank you for that. Thanks for sharing that. I think one of the main things, that's why I ask working with questions, mainly because then we can relate to each of these levels, because I know having a foundational understanding of these laws and 3 levels is key. And then I feel that when we ask questions, they can become our like examples themselves, right? I think Derek brought up a great example actually, right? That we all kind of go through, I feel. With different personality, coming different situations. So yeah, that's one of the main things. I think you know even when you're having problems, right? So people ask, like, what's the best way to deal with problems? So write them down. Don't keep it inside your mind. Don't keep it in your subconscious. It's gonna come as emotions and ruminations, right? So take problems, any problem that you have inside of you that is bothering you, put it on paper. I'm upset about this. I'm upset about that, right? Put it out. Put it, externalize it from your subconscious to external world, to journaling, whatever may be, right? Or use a Google sheet, right? So that's one of the main things you will see, is that if you have any problems or challenges, bring to me. We can talk about more, and we can work with the whole team to figure out what to do. But one of the main things that if you don't keep it inside of you, because it can cause problems, challenges unnecessarily, within the subconscious mind, right? So write it down on paper. It will make it easier to deal with, right? So that's itself is the other problem, right? Like that's one of the main things that why I started journaling, because like, man, I couldn't keep everything in my head anymore. There's too many things going on. Right, so that was a major thing, is like bring your problems outside, and then ideally, if you can talk about with us, because we honestly, when you bring problems, well, you're helping more than you think. You're helping other people who have similar problems, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, great point, Izuru. So anyways, go ahead, one of the ask more questions, or any honestly, because one of the things I'm doing is also helping people with their career and their business. So I'm just sharing, even if somebody has a better perspective on things, go for it. So if anyone needs to ask about, like, career related issues, or I think Clint, did you had a questions before earlier we were talking about? Do you want to bring that up a little bit?
Sure. So my question was essentially what something I've been observing that I do is say I'm supposed to work out by like 3 p.m. or something, and I know it takes an hour and a half to do it. So what my mind would do is it'll just procrastinate. It'll just watch YouTube videos or something until that window of time has already been crossed. Then you're like, oh, I don't have enough time to do it. So then you don't end up doing it. So my question was to do like, how do you understand the problem and how do you like fix it? So yeah.
Right. So what did we talk about? What did we talked about it. So share some of your things that you learned from it.
So Dulik's suggestion was to kind of try to find something which you enjoy doing, like the specific exercises that you enjoy doing. So for me, I think it would be either rows or bench. Rows or military press. So maybe just focus on those and uh, yeah, just try to progress on that, and then try to get consistent, and then you can add stuff later or something.
Yeah, that's a great question and example, and exactly what we kind of talked about, right? So this is one of the things that I've been trying to go to the gym for a long time. I was like, and then I realized, man, why am I not going? And then I started to think about what is the most enjoyable things I can do in the gym, right? Basketball, sauna, right? That was the only two, to be honest. Right? So then I was like, okay, why don't I just go do those? Right? Why don't I just go do sauna for a bit and then starting the process? So I realized, that using that guidance as joy was one of the ways I become consistent. I've been going on like, 5 to 6 times a week now. So I didn't plan to be consistent. I didn't even didn't target being consistent. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go enjoy myself in the gym. Right. So same with when I'm writing now. When I'm writing, I'm not, when I'm writing articles, I list all the articles I have, and then I pick and choose the one that is the most enjoyable to write about. Right. So that's usually kind of my process of kind of getting back to your high excitement. Again, it's not something people can do right away, but there is, in order to bring certain practices or consistencies into your life, use joy and your love as your guiding system, right? So because then I asked myself, is it better to just do nothing or do the joyful thing? It's like, no, it's better to do the joyful thing. Let me just still take action on it, right? And that when I do it enough times, it like it becomes now a more of a habit that is now embedded into my subconscious. So that's one of the ways that I'm also going into this field, right? Like out of the many things that I can talk about in these conversations, I'm picking this stuff. Why? Because it's the most joyful to me. I think it's the most helpful stuff I've learned. So I can talk about other stuff, but I like to talk about this because I feel like it can really help people and can change their lives, especially when you started to understand all these laws that we're going to be talking about, right? But before I want to talk about I want to talk about the laws really badly, but having an understanding about the foundation of the mind I feel is key.
You know what, Dookie? I was gonna say I second that, man. There was a point in my life, like recently,
Yeah.
the kids where like, man, it's such a drag to go to the gym, but I have this membership, whatever I'm trying to go. I literally went 2 months, like at least twice a week, where I did what I call the executive workout.
Okay.
Which is I show up, I go to the hot tub, I go to the steam room, I chill on my phone, I listen to some podcasts,
Nice.
I have a nice hot shower, and then I went home.
That's it, eh?
Right? I did it for like literally almost 2 months. And then after a while, it starts to trickle in like, you know what? I got a little energy today. Like, maybe I could do like a little bit of weightlifting. Like, let me just go do some squats. And then I did some squats, right? And then it slowly starts to inch forward. But I really do think like 80% of the battle is just getting there. And even if you go in and you do like one set of something and you come home, that compounding wise, that's always going to be a bigger gain than you not going at all. So I agree with you, Dookie, on that one.
Yeah, so it's crazy, Derek, you bring that up because one of the main reasons I started to have more fun is because of you, because you kind of forced me into having more fun. Because I didn't know that was actually, when I came to Canada, right? You were like, oh, you should, try this, Burger King or whatever, right? We were doing that, and even like sports, it's like you got to go have fun, bro. You got to do that, and then I didn't know that actually lead to a happier life also.
Yeah, I guess I was always everyone's goofy dad, right? That's who I was born to be.
Yeah. But that it was a major thing. Even like when I look at the mind, it's like how well our life goes forward when we are, let go of the things that don't work or whatever we happened in the past. We focus on what we can do, to have fun and joy, and more joy in life. That actually is a major accelerator for success. So, it's the first teacher on this was actually for me was Derek. So that's, thank you for that. But it was what happened for me that I didn't know that was the only thing I should be using. I didn't know that. I went back and forth. I have to do this thing, how to do that thing. And then suddenly you don't want to do it, especially when we get to our working life, right? We think we have to do things according to society. And then we have to do things according to that and compete or whatever. I was like, that's not what I want to do though. But I started to do it because everybody else is doing it. Everybody else have a job. Everybody else is doing this. Like, what else should I be doing? Right. But you see, like, why one of the main reasons why our childhoods are so enjoyable, and many of us have good memories of our childhood, because we didn't have those obligations from society that we were stuck by, and we can freely do play sports, play games, play what do you call it, NFL Street till the morning, right? All kinds of stuff, right? So we when we get older, we're like, no, gotta do this instead. We become more serious. But when we bring that, even in the Bible, right? Even Jesus talked about we gotta be like the children you were once were, if you want to enter heaven. So for me, heaven means happiness, joy, love, peace. What else can it be, right? So that's one of the things I realized, is that bringing that joy back to you, life is how you grow. So also give me some feedback. So this is kind of what I have for now. So tell me, like, is there anything else you guys want to for me to add, make some changes, or do you guys want to experiment with a little bit of meditations at the end? So I'm honestly open. I'm trying to make this as I'm running this every week, right? So this is something that will be happening every week, and not everybody, definitely don't have to join me, but tell me.
Duki, I have one thing that would kind of maximize my learning here too, is maybe really thinking about, like, at the end of every session, what do I focus on this week, right? Because everything is going to be baby step, right? It's going to be small changes in the way you think, just being more aware of, like, what is going on in your head, what is going on around you, how it's impacting. But, like, what is, like, the one thing after every session that we have that, like, we should maybe focus on, and next time we get together, it can serve as, like, a starting point for conversation.
I love that, Derek. That's a great idea. I'm going to think about what to do that for every week. That's a great one, actually.
And just to piggyback on that, oh, sorry, go ahead, Derek.
No, just go ahead.
I was gonna say, just to piggyback on that, just having like next steps, but also like a working session for like maybe like a few minutes at the end of like, hey, this is how you do X, Y, Z. So there's some sort of direction and guidance on how to do certain things. Like for example, journaling, right? You mentioned journaling a few times here, but for a lot of us, I've had practice because we've done it before together. But if first time coming into it, I'm like, what do I write? What do I think about? Right? So like just having that maybe like a 15 minutes like a working session on this, how I do it. Again, up to us to individualize that process, but just having like a working session to understand, okay, for this week, these are the action items, and this is how Dulik suggests that we do it, and then we have a starting point on how to do those steps.
Fantastic! Wow, good stuff, Izuru. I'm gonna definitely create that. Actually, that's fantastic.